You ever wish your brain came with, like, a user's manual? I mean, how cool would that be? Well, guess what? Based on a ton of solid research, we've kind of put one together. Today, we're going to crack open the secrets to actually learning effectively. I'm talking practical tools you can use to master pretty much any subject. So let's open up that manual, shall we? All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into the 2 basic ways your brain operates. Then, we'll get into building solid blocks of knowledge. Think of them as mental Legos. After that, we'll expose the common traps our brain set for us, tackle that monster called procrastination, and wrap up with some smart practice techniques to make sure what you learn actually sticks.
So, first things first, this is maybe the most important idea of all. Your brain has 2 totally different ways of operating. You can think of it kind of like an on and off switch, but it's for different kinds of thinking.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're staring at a problem, you're focusing so hard your head hurts, reading the same line over and over, and nothing. The answer just won't come. Well, that feeling, that frustrating "I'm stuck" feeling, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a super important signal your brain is sending you. And here's why. Your brain has these 2 modes. On one hand, you've got the focused mode. It's like a laser beam, right? Concentrating super hard on stuff that's already closely related. But then, you've got the diffuse mode. This is where your thoughts are looser. They can wander around and make these surprising connections between ideas that seem miles apart.
So here's the bottom line. Focus mode is awesome for doing something you already know how to do, step by step. But its biggest weakness? Tunnel vision. The diffuse mode, though, that's your secret weapon for creativity, for seeing the big picture. And it kicks in when you relax, go for a walk, take a shower, when you let your mind drift. Real mastery, real learning, comes from knowing how to dance between these 2 modes.
Okay, so if we need to switch between these 2 modes, what are we actually trying to build in our heads? Well, the goal is to build really solid mental building blocks. And in neuroscience, these are called chunks.
Now, a chunk isn't just a random fact you memorized. It's way more powerful. It's a whole network of neurons that are all wired up to fire together. Think of it like zipping a giant file on your computer. Once you've created the chunk, your brain doesn't have to relearn all the little pieces every time. It just grabs the one zipped file, and boom, it's all there.
So how do you actually build one of these chunks? It's a pretty straightforward 3-step deal. Step 1, you've got to give it your undivided attention. That means turning off the phone, closing the tabs, you know the drill. Step 2, you have to genuinely understand the basic idea you're trying to chunk. No faking it. And finally, step 3, and this is key, you have to practice with it. You got to use that chunk, see where it fits and how it connects to everything else. That's how it locks in.
And here's where the magic really happens. As you build up this library of chunks, as the researchers call it, your brain just becomes incredibly efficient. You can start mixing and matching these chunks in new ways to solve problems you've never seen before. That's literally the foundation of creativity. And you can even use chunks from one field to help you understand something in a completely different area. That's a process called transfer.
I love this quote because it just nails it. Expertise isn't some gift from the heavens. It's built piece by piece, chunk by chunk. You start small, you connect them, and over time, you build this incredible mental structure that lets you become a true master of whatever it is you're learning.
Okay, so you're building your chunks, you're putting in the time, but how do you know it's actually working? Because let me tell you, our brains are master illusionists. They love to trick us into thinking we know something when we really don't.
This, right here, is the biggest trap of all. You've got the book open, the pages covered in your favorite highlighter. It feels like you know it. It gives you this powerful illusion of competence. The truth is, just looking at the material or passively rereading it is one of the least effective ways to learn anything.
So what's the antidote? It's a simple but incredibly powerful technique called recall. All it means is trying to pull the key ideas out of your own memory without looking at the source. It's the struggle, that act of retrieval that actually builds the strong neural connections that make up real knowledge.
So let's get super clear on this. Passively rereading, highlighting everything, just glancing at the solution and going, "Oh yeah, I knew that." Those are illusions. Real effective learning is active. It's testing yourself. It's looking away from the page and seeing what you can remember. And this is so important, it's embracing your mistakes. A mistake isn't a failure. It's a bright, flashing sign showing you exactly where you need to strengthen your understanding. All right, let's talk about the big one. The beast that eats up all our good intentions, procrastination. But here's the good news. It's not some deep character flaw. It's just a habit. And like any habit, you can understand it, you can change it, and you can even harness your inner zombies to beat it.
So check this out. It turns out that when you even just think about doing something you don't like, your brain can literally register it as pain. Seriously. And procrastination is just your brain's automatic reaction to that pain. It tries to switch your focus to something more fun to get a little bit of temporary relief. The crazy part is, the only thing that actually makes that pain go away is just starting the task.
And to change that procrastination habit, you got to know how it's built. Every single habit has these 4 parts. There's a cue, the trigger, like seeing a tough problem, then the routine, the zombie-like action of, say, opening up social media, then the reward, a little distraction, and finally the belief that this whole loop actually works. If you want to change the habit, you have to find a way to rewire this loop.
And here is, without a doubt, the most powerful way to do that. Stop focusing on the product. Thinking, I have to finish this giant report is painful and it triggers procrastination. Instead, focus on the process. Just tell yourself, I'm going to work on this for 25 minutes. See the difference? That's a simple process your zombie brain can handle without freaking out. It's the simple genius behind techniques like the Pomodoro.
Okay, in our last section, let's cover a few next-level techniques that will absolutely supercharge your learning and help you build knowledge that's not just deep, but also really flexible. Once you have the basic idea of a chunk, the temptation is to just practice that same thing over and over. That's called massed practice. But what you really need to do is something called interleaving. That means you mix up different types of problems that require different strategies. Now, I'll be honest, this feels harder while you're doing it, but that's because it's forcing your brain to not just know how to use a tool, but to figure out which tool to use in the first place. That's how you build true mastery.
Here's a fun fact. Your brain is actually designed to forget things. It's called the forgetting curve. The only way to fight it is with something called spaced repetition. This means revisiting what you've learned, but at longer and longer intervals. So instead of cramming for 10 hours straight, you study for an hour, then review it the next day, then a few days later, then a week later. Every time you pull that memory back, you make it stronger and push it further into long-term storage.
And let's end with a kind of surprising idea. Sometimes being smarter or more experienced can actually get in your way. There's this phenomenon where your brain gets so locked into a familiar way of thinking that it completely misses a better, more creative solution that's sitting right there. It's a powerful reminder that true expertise comes from deliberate, flexible practice, not just from being a quote-unquote natural.
So let's just totally reframe this whole thing. Learning, it isn't some fixed trait you're born with. It's not a score on a test. It's a set of skills. Skills that you can learn, that you can get better at. It's a process. So the real question isn't, how smart am I? The real question is, what am I going to do with this amazing brain I've got? So, what's it going to be? What will you learn next?